Antarctica has always had a quietness unlike any other place on Earth. It is a quietness so big, so complete that it can swallow the voices of entire groups of people. What if hidden under the thick frozen layer of this huge southern continent, there were sounds from people long forgotten, perhaps even the very first group of people the world has ever known? This thought is both scary and exciting at the same time. It questions every neat timeline made by scientists who study old things and every sure statement about where human culture came from. It suggests that what we think of as beginnings might actually be pieces written over a deeper story buried under the ice. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And as always, let me know your local time and where you're listening from in the comments. Now let us begin. The earliest explorers of Antarctica never imagined such questions. To them it was an empty space at the bottom of the maps, a white emptiness with no story to tell. And yet even in ancient times there were whispers of a terra australis incognita, an unknown southern land that balanced the world. Greek thinkers debated whether it existed long before any ship reached the icy waters. Some argued it was necessary. If the Earth was a ball, then surely there had to be something to balance the lands of the north. What they could not have known was that this idea, born from guessing, might one day meet with real discovery. Antarctica, as we know it today, is the coldest, driest place on Earth. Ice covers it in layers up to 3 miles thick, pressing down on old rock and flattening any clue that life once lived there. But scientists have shown that this frozen wasteland has not always been this way. Studies of rocks and land show that during earlier times, Antarctica was full of forests, rivers, and weather closer to today's northern Europe. Frozen ferns would turn to stone, and even dinosaur bones have been dug up near its coastlines, proving that once upon a time, warmth and life grew where today there is only snow. This is where the first questions begin to creep in. If Antarctica was once a livable landscape, who or what may have lived there? Could it have hosted not only animals and plants but also humans? Or perhaps early groups of people older than all those we know? Most historians dismiss such thoughts as made-up stories, preferring to keep the beginning of organized culture within Mesopotamia, Egypt, or the Indus Valley. But there are strange things that resist such dismissal. One of the most famous strange things is the Piri Reis map drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral who claimed to have used far older charts as references. The map seems to show the coast of South America with surprising correctness centuries before modern mapping. More strangely, some researchers argue that the map shows a part of Antarctica without its ice. If true, the meaning is amazing. Someone somewhere drew the continent when its coastline was visible, which could mean tens of thousands of years ago. Scholars are still arguing whether this is a coincidence or artistic mistake or whether it truly represents knowledge we should not expect from the 16th century. To add to this unsettling puzzle, modern satellite studies have shown land masses and shapes under the ice that are hard to explain easily. In some areas, what appears to be natural mountain ridges have been understood by fans as geometric, even pyramid-shaped. The human mind tends to see patterns. But when matching shapes appear in places beyond human reach, the temptation to wonder is hard to resist. Could these be natural formations shaped by ice and wearing away? Or the remains of old buildings buried deeper than our history books allow? Historical examples suggest that groups of people rise and fall, leaving traces often misunderstood or ignored until found again. The ruins of Troy were once dismissed as legend until a determined scientist dug them up from beneath layers of soil. The lost cities of Central America lay hidden under jungles until explorers cleared the vines. Is it truly impossible to imagine that another such discovery might lie under Antarctic ice, kept safe by the very forces that hide it? This is not merely a question of curiosity. If such a group of people existed, it would change the story of humanity's growth. It would suggest that organized societies may have appeared far earlier in climates we do not connect with human progress. It would push back the clock, forcing us to rethink migrations, technologies, and the fragile relationship between humans and changing climates. It would also face us with an uncomfortable idea that our current group of people with all its confidence may not be the first to rise to a worldwide scale. In recent years, the scientific community has contributed findings that fuel this guessing. Ice core samples taken from Antarctica have shown not just weather changes, but hints of sudden disaster-like events. Layers of ash trapped within the ice point to violent volcano eruptions. Sharp chemical signs suggest space rock impacts or space dust inflows. These match with theories of sudden climate change which could transform a fertile land into a frozen wilderness within a geological blink of an eye. If humans lived there, their world could have been erased nearly overnight. Outside of science, myths and spoken traditions add strange voices to the conversation. Tales of lost southern lands told in Polynesia, South America, and even ancient Greece seem out of place unless they carried some shadow of reality. Some researchers suggest that myths may keep distant cultural memories of migrations, islands, or even continents that were swallowed by ice or ocean. Others warn against such leaps, pointing out how often myths blend imagination and reality. Yet the coming together of stories from opposite ends of the Earth raises at least the possibility of a shared memory of something lost. In the modern time, Antarctica is one of the least explored places on Earth. The Antarctic Treaty signed in 1959 protects it as a continent devoted to peace and science, forbidding military activity and limiting permanent settlements. While noble in purpose, the treaty has also created a veil of secrecy around the continent. Access is limited, research is tightly controlled, and large areas remain untouched. This has only deepened the sense of mystery, feeding guessing that discoveries, whether about land, old things, or otherwise, are quietly hidden from the public eye. Every theory, every strange thing, every unexplained map or myth invites the same haunting question. What lies beneath? Could Antarctica truly hide a forgotten chapter of human history? One that would rewrite everything we thought we knew? Or is the truth simpler, bound by the slow movements of glaciers, the shifting of continents, and the fallibility of human imagination? The debate remains open, and the quietness of Antarctica continues to guard its secret. The story begins here with ice that may not simply hide lifeless rock, but perhaps, just perhaps, the remains of the first group of people. The possibility of Antarctica hiding a lost group of people leads directly to an even broader and older guess, the lost continent idea. Long before modern satellites traced the outlines of ice sheets, long before explorers sailed into the southern seas, there was an idea rooted in balance, matching shapes, and imagination. Ancient mapmakers believed the world required a southern land mass, Terra Australis Incognita, to balance the known continents of the north. Though it began as theory rather than discovery, the idea of this hidden land shaped maps, myths, and even the goals of explorers for centuries. During the age of Greek thinking, minds like Aristotle and Ptolemy entertained the concept of an unknown southern land. Ptolemy's maps in particular sketched great stretches of uncharted space at the bottom of the world, filled in with guessed continents. It was not merely a whim. There was logic behind it. To the ancients, the earth was a ball, and matching shapes demanded that land in the north must be balanced by land in the south. Even without ships or compasses, they imagined Antarctica into existence, a thinking placeholder for a balance they felt the world required. Scholars are still arguing whether such maps were purely abstract or if they drew on distant rumors carried along ancient trade routes. By the Middle Ages, this idea changed in curious ways. European map makers showed enormous southern continents covering nearly half the globe stretching across unknown seas. These maps combined fragments of inherited Greek thought with guessing, religious symbolism, and imaginative art. For some, this land became not only a balance for geography, but also a canvas for morality tales, home to strange creatures, monster-like races, or unimaginable wealth. In a way, the lost continent idea was less about what existed and more about what humans projected onto the unknown. Then came the scientific discoveries of the study of land. The theory of continental drift introduced in the early 20th century by Alfred Wegener gave new substance to old imaginings. Wegener proposed that the continents were once joined in a supercontinent Pangaea that broke apart and drifted to their present positions. At the southern heart of this reconstruction lay Gondwana, a vast prehistoric landmass that included Antarctica, South America, Africa, India, and Australia. Suddenly, the lost continent was no longer merely myth. It had a name, a history, and a place in scientific understanding. Fossil evidence supported this view. Identical plant species like the fern Glossopteris were found in rock layers across South America, Africa, and Antarctica, suggesting that these lands were once united. Likewise, remains of similar reptile species were discovered on continents now separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Antarctica, though buried beneath ice, appeared as a keystone in the puzzle of Earth's ancient geography. Its icy quietness was not timeless. It was the after-effect of huge shifts in the planet's crust, a reminder of deep time and changing climates. But for those who suspect a hidden group of people, the lost continent idea is more than land history. Provides a believable setting. If Antarctica was once part of a vast mild land mass, if forests stretched across its valleys and animals roamed its plains, then it is not impossible to imagine humans or pre-human cultures finding shelter there. The great migrations that carried Homo sapiens across the globe may have touched Antarctica in ways we cannot yet confirm. And if such a culture thrived, its disappearance beneath ice might explain why so little trace remains. Disaster looms large in these ideas. One version suggests that a sudden shift of the Earth's crust moved Antarctica, dragging it from a mild latitude into the polar circle in mere geological moments. The idea of a pole shift gained attention in the mid-20th century, advanced by thinkers such as Charles Hapgood. If correct, it would mean that Antarctica was not always a land of ice, but one violently thrust into cold, freezing over an existing ecosystem, possibly even a group of people. The mainstream scientific community is cautious, doubtful of such rapid movements, but the theory lingers in the cultural imagination. It offers a dramatic explanation for how a thriving world might vanish in an instant. Meanwhile, the fossil record adds hints of mystery. In recent decades, trips have uncovered remains of ancient rainforests kept beneath the Antarctic ice. Layers of soil contain pollen from trees that once reached toward a sunlit sky. Fossils of amphibians and reptiles suggest ecosystems far richer than expected. If Antarctica was once green, then perhaps it was also once livable for humans. The change from that lush landscape to the frozen desert we see today remains one of the most extreme shifts in Earth's climate history. There is another layer of guessing that Antarctica was once the true Atlantis. While Plato's Atlantis has traditionally been connected with the Mediterranean or the Atlantic Ocean, some thinkers have reinterpreted his descriptions through the lens of Antarctica's lost continent, a vast, powerful group of people destroyed by sudden disaster buried beneath water and ice. Fits at least in outline. Whether this connection is believable or not, it shows how myths adapt to new theories, binding ancient stories to modern discoveries. And yet, every idea rests on a fragile balance between evidence and imagination. The land story of Gondwana is well established, grounded in fossils and rock layers. But the leap from prehistoric forest to human group of people is far more uncertain. Historians are still arguing whether early humans could have reached Antarctica at all given its remoteness and the challenges of crossing southern oceans. Some argue that the technology required for such voyages was beyond Stone Age or even early farming societies. Others, however, point to the surprising navigation skills of ancient sailors who reached islands across the Pacific thousands of years before modern navigation. Could it be that similar feats carried explorers southward toward the edge of the unknown? Strangely, the lost continent idea does not stand alone. Around the world, tales of sunken lands continue. Lemuria in the Indian Ocean, Mu in the Pacific, Atlantis in the Atlantic. Each is a cultural echo of something lost, a reminder that humans across time have sensed absences in the geography of their world. Whether these myths reflect land events such as rising seas after the Ice Age, or whether they keep memories of forgotten cultures, they feed into the same question. How much of history lies hidden, waiting to be uncovered? The idea of Antarctica as a lost continent is therefore both scientific and mythical. It bridges the rational understanding of plate movements with the poetic longing for forgotten worlds. It is a place where hard evidence of fossilized forests meets whispered legends of groups of people erased by ice. And it is in that space between science and guessing that the possibility of Antarctica as Earth's first cradle of culture continues to grow. Long before satellites captured high-resolution images of Antarctica's coastlines, Long before ice-penetrating radar revealed mountains and rivers buried under miles of ice crust, there were maps. Maps that should not exist. They rest in archives etched on old paper or copied from older sources bearing details that challenge the limits of their time. Chief among them is the puzzling Piri Reis map created in 1513 by an admiral of the Ottoman fleet. On its worn surface, scholars see what appear to be fragments of South America, and more controversially hints of an ice-free Antarctica drawn centuries before the continent's official discovery. The Piri Reis map was put together from numerous sources, some dating back to classical ancient times. The admiral himself noted that he relied on 20 ancient charts, many long lost to history, to build his picture of the world. What startled researchers in the 20th century was its correctness in showing the eastern coast of South America. At a time when much of that coastline was still unexplored by Europeans, the precision suggested access to knowledge that should not have been available. Even stranger, beneath the South American outline, a landmass appears that some understand as Antarctica, its coastal shapes visible without the overlay of ice. If true, the meanings are amazing. It would mean that someone in some distant past had mapped the southern continent in conditions not seen for tens of thousands of years. Mainstream historians argue for caution. The strange things could be explained as errors, distortions introduced as multiple map sources were combined, or perhaps wrong understandings of South American geography. The lower coastline may simply represent an stretched-out rendering of South America itself. Yet the resemblance to Antarctica has been too strong for many to dismiss entirely. Scholars are still arguing whether the Piri Reis map reflects ancient geographical knowledge or merely the accidents of copying and imagination. The Piri Reis map is not alone. The Orontius Phineas map, published in 1531, shows a southern continent with surprising detail. Its coastline, rivers, and mountain ranges seem oddly knowing, as if glimpsed through the centuries before modern discovery. Some researchers claim the shapes match with radar images of Antarctica beneath its ice sheets. Again, doubters point out distortions, but the pattern is undeniable. Multiple maps from the Renaissance show a southern continent centuries before Captain James Cook and later trips confirmed its existence. The Bwatch map, created in 1737, adds to the puzzle. It presents Antarctica divided into two separate land masses with a sea between them, something remarkably similar to the way ice-penetrating radar later revealed the continent's bedrock, East Antarctica and West Antarctica, separated by the Transantarctic Mountains. To some, this is strange evidence of advanced knowledge predating modern science. To others, it is coincidence shaped by creative guessing. The debate lingers unresolved, with every side aware of the deep consequences if the maps are more than chance. If Antarctica was indeed mapped before it was buried in ice, the question becomes, who mapped it? This opens the door to ideas both reasonable and extreme. Some suggest early sailing groups of people, perhaps Phoenicians or even older Mediterranean cultures, managed voyages far beyond what regular history credits them with. Others guess that unknown peoples long erased from history explored and charted the globe in ways forgotten by time. A more extreme fringe proposes influences from lost groups of people like Atlantis, their knowledge scattered and kept in fragments through later mapmakers. The very existence of these maps meets strangely with myths of worldwide navigation. Stories from Polynesia, South America, and even Northern Europe describe journeys across huge seas, often guided by stars and memory rather than instruments. Modern scientists who study old things have been surprised at the skill of ancient navigators who settled distant islands of the Pacific thousands of years before the compass. If they could achieve such feats, might others have ventured further, tracing coastlines we once believed unreachable? There are also curious historical references to lands at the bottom of the world. Greek and Roman writers mention Terra Australis, a vast southern continent required to balance the known world. Their words, filtered through centuries of guessing, may have shaped the maps of the Renaissance. But some scholars have suggested that fragments of genuine ancient geographical knowledge traded, copied, and reinterpreted might have survived into the Middle Ages, resurfacing on the desks of European mapmakers. So, what was the original source? The potential age of such knowledge leads back to the Ice Age. Around 12,000 years ago, Earth's climate shifted dramatically as the last ice maximum ended. Sea levels rose, Coastlines shifted, and regions once livable became underwater or frozen. If a culture capable of mapping coastlines had existed during that changing time, its memory could have been lost amid floods and extinctions. Later groups of people may have inherited fragments of its knowledge, stripped of context, but kept in mysterious maps. This idea blurs the line between the study of old things and guessing. Yet, it remains a possibility that refuses to fade. Even more thought-provoking is the possibility that these maps were part of guarded traditions, passed secretly through ancient priesthoods, mystery schools, or secret societies. During the Renaissance, knowledge from the ancient world was rediscovered, translated, and sometimes deliberately hidden. Could the mapmakers who drew southern continents have relied on ancient manuscripts lost to public record? If so, those manuscripts themselves may have been copies of something older still. This chain of passing complicates the search for origins, but it also feeds the attraction of mystery. Of course, doubters remind us of the human tendency to find patterns where none exist. Map makers of the Renaissance often filled unknown regions with imaginative inventions, sea monsters, guessed coastlines, and continents that had not been discovered. The Orontius Phineas map may reflect nothing more than guesswork. The Bwatch map might be a projection of guessing. Historians argue that to read precise correctness into them is to fall into confirmation bias. Yet the continuation of these coincidences remains troubling, especially as scientific discoveries echo elements of the old maps. A strange off-topic event adds another layer of curiosity. In 1929, when the Piri Reis map was rediscovered in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, it immediately caught the attention of both historians and military officials. Reports suggest that even modern intelligence agencies took an interest in the map-making strange things. This fascination was not purely academic. Correct pre-modern maps of polar regions would suggest levels of exploration and knowledge with meanings for navigation, trade, and even world politics. The meeting of ancient map-making and modern secrecy highlights how deeply these strange things unsettle regular narratives. What comes from these maps is not certainty but a deep invitation to reconsider history. If they are errors, then they reflect the boundless imagination of Renaissance mapmakers. If they are echoes of forgotten knowledge, then they hint at groups of people capable of exploration long before the age of European empires. In either case, they sharpen the sense of mystery surrounding Antarctica. Beneath the ice, beneath the weight of centuries, there may lie not only a continent, but also a key to a chapter of human history we have yet to turn. Myths are the echoes of voices that no longer speak. They travel across centuries, reshaped in the retelling, yet carrying fragments of forgotten memories. When it comes to Antarctica, an interesting question arises. Do ancient myths from distant corners of the world keep a hidden memory of a southern land, perhaps once known and later erased by time and ice? The possibility has fascinated historians and storytellers alike. For if memory lingers in myth, then stories may be the only surviving witness to a group of people swallowed whole. The Greeks left some of the earliest traces of this idea. Their thinkers debated the existence of Terra Australis long before any ships ventured so far south. Aristotle and Strabo wrote of a great land at the edge of the known world, thought of not from observation but from the logic of matching shapes. The earth, they reasoned, must balance itself. If there were continents in the north, then there must be one in the south. While these accounts may not reflect true knowledge, they created a framework of expectation, a placeholder in human thought for a land that had yet to be discovered. Scholars are still arguing whether such classical hints were purely guessing or whether they drew faintly on rumors carried through ancient trade networks. Further west, Polynesian traditions told of vast journeys across the Pacific guided by stars and memory. Their spoken histories describe islands that appear, vanish, and sometimes reappear in mythic cycles. In some accounts, navigators spoke of a land in the far south, a place of dangerous seas and shifting skies. These stories may reflect encounters with subantarctic islands such as New Zealand or the Kerguelen Islands. Yet some researchers wonder if they keep an ancestral memory of exploration that stretched further, brushing against the Antarctic Circle. Such understandings are controversial, but they show how myth often expands beyond the boundaries of what seems possible. South America also contributes tantalizing clues. Among the myths of the Andes, stories tell of gods coming from the sea, bearing knowledge and tools to uplift humanity. Viracocha, a creator deity in Inca tradition, is said to have come from the waters of Lake Titicaca before traveling across the Andes, teaching people skills and laws. Some later chroniclers hearing these tales suggested that Viracocha came not merely from the lake, but from the distant south across the ocean. Could this be a distorted memory of contact with the land to the far south? Perhaps even Antarctica itself when it was still livable. There are also myths of disaster. Across the world, traditions speak of great floods, sudden freezing, and lands swallowed by the sea. The Hopi of North America, the Sumerians of Mesopotamia, and the Maori of New Zealand all tell variations of a story in which an older world was destroyed and a new one born. Within this universal theme, some thinkers detect the faint outline of Antarctica, a land once fertile, now destroyed by ice. While mainstream historians warn against drawing direct lines between myth and geography, the continuation of these themes across cultures invites guessing. One particularly strange account comes from medieval Europe. In 14th century texts, there are tales of sailors reaching a southern land filled with mountains and strange animals. Though dismissed as fantasy, these stories sometimes describe conditions oddly reminiscent of Antarctica's pre-ice past with forests and rivers in places now buried beneath ice. Were these imaginative inventions or distorted echoes of older traditions that remembered Antarctica as it once was? The myth of Atlantis hovers at the edge of all such discussions. Plato's tale describes a powerful group of people destroyed by sudden disaster, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night. While most understandings place Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean or the Mediterranean, some fringe theories relocate it to Antarctica. The parallels are tempting: a lost group of people buried under water and ice, erased from history yet lingering in memory. Whether or not Plato's story corresponds to any real event, it demonstrates how deeply humanity is drawn to the idea of forgotten worlds. Even in more recent traditions, hints of southern lands continue. Portuguese sailors in the 15th century spoke of vast continents to the south, described in fragments that combined rumor, imagination, and perhaps genuine encounters with uncharted islands. Some of these accounts fueled the voyages of discovery that eventually circled the globe. In this sense, myth served as a compass, pointing explorers toward what they hoped to find, even when they had no proof. The meeting of myth and Antarctica is not only about geography. It is about memory. Human cultures have always kept memories of disaster, whether through flood legends, fire myths, or tales of ice and darkness. These stories may encode real events, volcano eruptions, rising seas, space rock strikes experienced by ancestors and passed down in symbolic form. If Antarctica was once livable, and if a group of people truly lived there, then its sudden disappearance beneath ice would have been one of the greatest disasters in human prehistory. Could myths of lost lands scattered across continents be faint memories of that disaster? There is, however, no clear answer. Historians are still arguing whether myths can be taken as historical sources at all. Some argue that they keep kernels of truth wrapped in symbolism, while others insist they are purely cultural creations shaped by imagination rather than memory. Yet the continuation of certain themes, sunken lands, sudden disaster, knowledge from the sea suggests a common thread. At the very least, myths reveal what humanity has always suspected: that our history is incomplete and that somewhere something vast may have been lost. A curious off-topic example shows how myth and memory can mix. In the 19th century, explorers in South America recorded a story from native people about giant white birds flying southward, never to return. To the locals, this was a myth explaining the migration of unknown creatures. To modern eyes, it sounds eerily like a distorted memory of large seabirds, perhaps albatrosses, whose migratory paths do indeed arc toward the southern seas. What appears mythic may sometimes contain a kernel of natural observation. Just as stories of lost southern lands may hold fragments of a deeper truth, the myths of Greece, Polynesia, and South America do not prove the existence of an Antarctic group of people. But they do remind us that memory is long and imagination longer still. They suggest that the quietness of Antarctica may not be absolute, that across cultures and centuries, whispers of a land at the bottom of the world have continued, waiting to be rediscovered. The landscape of Antarctica is a puzzle locked beneath 3 miles of ice. To the human eye, it appears lifeless, an endless sheet of white stretching toward the horizon, shaped only by wind and weather. But beneath that ice lies a land archive older than any written memory. Scientists who have dared to peer through the frozen veil have uncovered rivers that never see the sun, mountain ranges hidden for millions of years, and signs of a climate so totally different from today that it almost challenges imagination. If Antarctica is hiding the traces of the world's first group of people, its land study would hold the silent clues. Earthquake surveys carried out during the International Geophysical Year of 1957 to 58 offered the first glimpses of the buried continent. Using sound waves to map what could not be seen, researchers discovered the Gamburtsev Mountains, an entire range the size of the Alps hidden beneath the ice sheet. The revelation startled land scientists, for such mountains are not supposed to exist beneath the crushing weight of ice. Their presence raised questions. How old were they and what kind of climate once shaped their peaks? The Gamburtsevs became a land ghost, a reminder that even massive mountain ranges can be swallowed whole. Later radar surveys revealed still more extraordinary features. Beneath the ice lies Lake Vostok, one of the largest under-ice lakes on Earth, sealed away for perhaps 15 million years. Its waters are liquid not because of sunlight, but because heat from inside the Earth rises from below, preventing it from freezing solid. Scientists drilling into the ice above Vostok discovered microbes that may have been isolated for eons. A glimpse into ecosystems that challenge regular understanding. If life can survive in such conditions, it lends weight to the idea that Antarctica's depths may hide more than we expect. In guessing, some wonder if microbes can continue for millions of years beneath ice. Could artifacts or even human traces be equally well kept? Land study also tells the story of a warmer Antarctica. Fossil evidence shows that around 90 million years ago during the Cretaceous, the continent was covered with rainforests. Settled materials taken from deep beneath the ice revealed pollen grains from ancient conifers and flowering plants, evidence of a thriving mild landscape. More recently, fossilized wood and leaves discovered along Antarctica's coasts confirm that forests extended even near the poles. Dinosaurs once walked there. Amphibians thrived in its rivers. Birds nested among its trees. The shift from such richness to today's barren ice is one of the most dramatic climate changes in Earth's history. But the most convincing evidence lies in the more recent past. Studies suggest that as late as 30 million years ago, Antarctica's ice sheets were on and off, rising and falling with climate cycles. More thought-provokingly, there is data suggesting warm periods within the last few million years when parts of the continent may have been ice-free. During these windows, Antarctica could have supported ecosystems similar to modern tundra or northern forests. If early humans or a group of people predating known history ever reached the southern continent, these warmer periods would have provided the opportunity. Heat from inside the Earth activity continues to shape Antarctica today. Volcano hotspots, some still active, lie hidden beneath the ice. Mount Erebus, a towering stratovolcano on Ross Island, erupts regularly, its lava lake glowing amid the frozen desert. Earthquake studies suggest that dozens of other volcanoes lie buried under the ice, their heat carving under ice channels and lakes. Some researchers argue that this heat from inside the Earth might speed up melting, exposing landscapes unseen for millions of years. To those who guess about hidden groups of people, heat from inside the Earth provides a tantalizing possibility, a natural source of heat that could have sustained life even as the ice advanced. Strange things deepen the intrigue. In 2006, satellite surveys detected a vast circular feature beneath the Wilkes Land ice sheet nearly 300 kilometers across. Some land scientists understand it as an impact crater, possibly created by an asteroid that struck Antarctica around 250 million years ago, an event that could have triggered mass extinctions. Others suggest more ordinary explanations, but the strange thing continues to provoke guessing. To fringe thinkers, the circular form resembles something artificial, perhaps even the remains of huge buildings buried beneath ice. The mainstream view remains cautious, but the mystery continues. Ice itself is a land storyteller. Each layer keeps a record of past climates, volcano eruptions, space dust, even changes in greenhouse gases. Ice cores drilled from Antarctica stretch back hundreds of thousands of years, recording the planet's changing atmosphere. They show sudden shifts, periods when temperatures spiked or dropped in ways that could destroy ecosystems. One such event around 12,900 years ago marks the Younger Dryas, a period of sudden cooling possibly triggered by a space rock impact. Some thinkers link this event to worldwide flood myths and the destruction of an advanced Ice Age culture. If Antarctica held such a culture, the Younger Dryas could explain its sudden disappearance beneath ice and snow. A curious off-topic example shows how much remains hidden. In 2013, scientists studying radar images discovered what looked like a network of ancient river valleys buried under the East Antarctic ice sheet. These valleys, carved by flowing water millions of years ago, were as large as those of the Nile or the Mississippi. Though purely land-related in nature, they hint at a time when Antarctica's surface supported huge rivers, fertile plains, and perhaps even human living. The rivers themselves are long gone, but their imprint endures frozen into the bedrock like a map of another world. The land study of Antarctica therefore offers both answers and questions. It confirms that the continent was once lush and livable. It demonstrates that entire mountain ranges, lakes, and valleys can be hidden beneath ice for millions of years. It reveals sudden shifts in climate that could erase entire ecosystems. Yet, it also leaves open the tantalizing possibility that if humans ever reached Antarctica during its warmer periods, their traces might still lie kept, locked away in layers of ice and stone. Historians are still arguing how far back human exploration can reasonably be pushed. Scientific evidence confirms human presence in South America at least 14,000 years ago and perhaps much earlier. Sailing cultures reached remote islands of the Pacific long before modern navigation. If such peoples ventured south, Antarctica may not have been entirely unknown. The land record assures us that if they arrived, the land they saw was not the barren desert we imagine today, but something altogether different. A landscape where forests grew and rivers ran, waiting to be rediscovered beneath the ice. If Antarctica once held forests, rivers, and a livable climate, the next natural question is whether signs of human presence might still linger beneath its ice. For decades, scattered claims, strange things, and controversial reports have suggested that the continent may not be as untouched as it seems. Some of these claims have been proven false. Others remain unresolved, and a few continue to stir debate, quietly hinting at the possibility that human footprints once pressed into Antarctic soil long before the first recorded trips arrived. One of the most frequently mentioned strange things is the appearance of pyramid-shaped mountains in satellite imagery. Photos taken from space show sharp triangle peaks rising from the snow, their matching shapes strange against the chaotic backdrop of ice and rock. To many, they look like pyramids, massive and deliberate, built on a scale to rival Giza. Land scientists are quick to explain them as nunataks, isolated mountaintops exposed above the surrounding ice sheet, their angular shape carved by wind and wearing away. Yet the resemblance is difficult to ignore, and to some thinkers the possibility of artificial construction remains alive. Historians are still arguing whether these formations are purely natural or if there is more to their shapes than coincidence. Another controversial claim came from accounts of World War II. Rumors spread that Nazi trips to Antarctica in the late 1930s discovered ancient structures or established secret bases. The story often merges with guessing about hidden technology, underground caverns, and hidden discoveries. While mainstream history records that Germany did send exploratory missions, there is little believable evidence of anything beyond scientific surveys. Still, the continuation of the legend demonstrates how easily Antarctica's quietness becomes a canvas for human imagination. The combination of a hostile environment, limited access, and worldwide secrecy makes it fertile ground for guessing. More touchable are the stories of out-of-place artifacts, objects reportedly discovered in Antarctica that do not fit the regular timeline. In some fringe accounts, explorers claim to have found stone tools or even carved objects embedded in rock or ice. Most of these reports are story-based, lacking physical evidence or proper documentation. Yet, the very idea invites curiosity. If humans reached Antarctica during its warmer times, they would have left behind tools, dwellings, and art just as they did in Africa, Europe, and Asia. The question is not whether artifacts could exist, but whether they have survived the crushing weight of glaciers and the wearing away of time. A peculiar case comes from the 1940s when the Chilean Navy reportedly recovered unusual metallic objects along Antarctic shores. Descriptions suggested a technology more advanced than expected, fueling rumors of lost groups of people or even alien contact. Mainstream historians dismiss these stories as wrong understandings, but they show how often Antarctica blurs the line between fact and legend in environments. So remote and hostile, small discoveries can easily grow into myths. Modern technology has only deepened the mystery. Satellite surveys have revealed strange things beneath the ice that some understand as geometric or building-like. In 2012, researchers announced the detection of what appeared to be large rectangular structures buried beneath the ice in East Antarctica. While most scientists explain these as natural land formations, others remain unconvinced. The possibility of buried buildings cannot be ruled out without digging. Yet digging on that scale is forbidden under the Antarctic Treaty. Thus, the strange things remain locked in guessing, neither proven nor disproven. The discovery of fossilized remains of ancient life further complicates the picture. Stone forests, dinosaur bones, and traces of once thriving ecosystems demonstrate that Antarctica was not always frozen. If prehistoric animals lived there, why not early humans? Scientific sites in South America, such as Monte Verde in Chile, show evidence of human presence over 14,000 years ago. This suggests that early populations had already migrated far south. From there, Antarctica would have been only a further journey across the Drake Passage. Difficult, yes, but not impossible for sailing cultures with knowledge of currents and winds. Could some of them have reached the shores of a milder Antarctica? An unusual off-topic event adds an eerie layer. In the 1970s, Soviet scientists drilling into under ice lakes reported hearing unusual sound signals beneath the ice. Though later dismissed as equipment noise, rumors spread of mechanical sounds or unexplained vibrations far below the surface. To the guessing mind, such accounts suggested hidden machines or structures operating in secrecy. To scientists, they were reminders of how fragile instruments can be in extreme conditions. Regardless of understanding, the story contributed to Antarctica's reputation as a place where ordinary data easily transforms into mystery. Historians remain divided. The mainstream view holds that there is no solid evidence of ancient human presence in Antarctica, no clear artifacts, no certain structures, no writings. Yet the land record leaves open windows of possibility during warm periods in the Pliocene or earlier warm times between ice ages. The continent would have been livable. If humans or human ancestors reached it, then their traces might be buried deep below the ice, waiting for future discovery. Alternatively, rising seas and advancing glaciers may have erased them entirely, leaving only myths and strange things as faint reminders. The debate also raises broader questions about human history. Regular study of old things places the rise of groups of people around 6,000 years ago with early city-states in Mesopotamia and Egypt. But new discoveries continue to push back the timeline. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built over 11,000 years ago, revealed huge buildings far earlier than expected. If such a site could exist in Turkey, why not an equally surprising site in Antarctica, buried beyond reach? The comparison is not perfect, but it demonstrates how fragile our timelines can be. Guessing aside, Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Less than 0.5% of its surface has been studied directly. Vast areas remain untouched, hidden beneath ice thicker than the tallest skyscrapers. Even with modern technology, much of the continent is invisible, mapped only through indirect signals. In this sense, Antarctica is the perfect hiding place. Whether it hides human traces, land wonders, or nothing at all, it will continue to provoke curiosity until its secrets are revealed. The idea that Antarctica may have once hosted a group of people sometimes collides with another enduring mystery: the origins of ancient Egypt. Across centuries, Egypt has been seen not only as a cradle of human culture, but also as a holder of forgotten wisdom. Its pyramids, temples, and star alignments speak of a skill that still puzzles modern researchers. Could it be that Egypt kept echoes of knowledge inherited from a land long vanished? Perhaps even from a group of people buried beneath Antarctic ice. For centuries, Egyptian mythology has hinted at lands beyond the known world. In their stories, there was the concept of Zep-Tepi, the first time, an era when gods walked the earth and brought order out of chaos. Some Egyptologists understand this as symbolic myth, a poetic way of describing the dawn of organized groups of people. Others suggest it may recall genuine memory of an earlier time, a group of people that came before from which Egypt drew its wisdom. If Antarctica once flourished during a warmer period, could Zep-Tepi be a distant remembrance of a land erased by disaster? The pyramids themselves invite guessing. Their alignment to sky bodies, particularly Orion's belt and the pole stars, demonstrates a deep understanding of star study. Scholars debate how such precision was achieved given the tools available to Old Kingdom builders. To some, this reflects careful observation and calculation by skilled ancient astronomers. To others, it suggests inherited knowledge passed down from an older source. The possibility that this knowledge began in a group of people destroyed by sudden climate change has fascinated alternative historians. They argue that Antarctica before it froze may have been the source. There are also curious connections between Egyptian traditions and tales of lands far to the south. Some texts describe journeys across the Great Green, the vast sea that bordered their world. Trips to Punt, a half-mythical land rich in incense and gold, were recorded in Egyptian writings. While mainstream historians identify Punt with regions in East Africa, some fringe theories guess that the memory of voyages further afield, perhaps even southward, became merged into these stories. The idea remains controversial, but it underscores how Egyptian culture often carried memories of distant lands and ancestral journeys. Historians are still arguing the origins of Egyptian building forms. The step pyramids, mastabas, and later smooth-sided pyramids represent a rapid development of huge buildings. Was this evolution purely local, or did it draw on influences from elsewhere? The sudden appearance of large-scale stone building has parallels with Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a site much older than Egypt, but similarly puzzling. If advanced building techniques were kept through spoken tradition or migration, Antarctica could hypothetically be part of that chain of passing. This is guessing, but it adds to the web of possibilities connecting Egypt to forgotten sources. There is also the peculiar case of the Sphinx. Its worn body has sparked one of the most heated debates in the study of old things. Some land scientists argue that its weathering patterns resemble water wearing away, suggesting that it predates the dry desert climate of Egypt and may be thousands of years older than regularly believed. If true, this would place its construction closer to the end of the last ice age when Earth's climate shifted dramatically. Such a timeline aligns curiously with theories that groups of people may have existed before the Great Freeze, perhaps in Antarctica, only to vanish as the world transformed. A strange off-topic episode shows how Egypt and Antarctica became linked in modern imagination. In the 1930s, explorers reported discovering mummified remains in the mountains of the Andes kept in ice. To some fringe thinkers, this suggested that ancient peoples capable of high-altitude survival might also have reached Antarctica. The leap is uncertain, yet it reflects a recurring pattern. Egypt, the Andes, and Antarctica are often drawn together in theories of worldwide groups of people bound by pyramids, alignments, and myths of sudden loss. The overlap between Egyptian myth and Antarctic guessing also appears in secret traditions. Some mystics claim that the knowledge of the pharaohs began not in the Nile Valley, but in a southern land destroyed by disaster. According to these stories, survivors of that disaster moved northward, carrying wisdom that later blossomed in Egypt. While mainstream scholars dismiss such claims as imaginative fiction, they reveal how enduring the idea of a southern source has been in human thought. The possibility of shared star knowledge strengthens this guessing. Both Egyptian and Mayan groups of people separated by oceans and thousands of years align their monuments with sky events. If such practices arose independently, they testify to a universal human fascination with the skies. But if they share a common root, it suggests cultural passing across vast distances. Could Antarctica in a distant time have served as an intermediary or even an origin for such traditions? At its core, the Egypt-Antarctica connection challenges regular time order. Mainstream study of old things places the origins of Egyptian groups of people around 5,000 years ago with gradual development from earlier farming communities. Yet the scale and precision of their achievements seem out of proportion to such a timeline. Some thinkers argue that Egypt inherited fragments of a much older legacy, perhaps from an Ice Age group of people erased by disaster. Antarctica, fertile and livable before its sudden freeze, offers a believable candidate for that lost world. And yet, evidence is hard to find. No writings in Egypt clearly reference Antarctica. No artifacts have been traced directly to its frozen soil. What remains are parallels, coincidences, and the enduring attraction of myths. Still, the possibility is tantalizing. If Egypt's extraordinary achievements were indeed influenced by a forgotten group of people, then the ice of Antarctica may be hiding not just land history, but the roots of human culture itself. Groups of people, no matter how mighty, are fragile in the face of nature's fury. The story of Antarctica, if it once held a thriving culture, would inevitably end with disaster. For the continent to shift from fertile valleys and flowing rivers to an icy desert, something dramatic must have occurred. Theories abound. Space rock impacts, volcano eruptions, pole shifts, or sudden climate collapse. Whatever the mechanism, the change was violent enough to bury a world beneath 3 miles of ice, erasing its surface from human memory. Land evidence shows that Earth's climate can turn with terrifying speed. During the Younger Dryas, roughly 12,900 years ago, the northern half of the world plunged into a sudden deep freeze. Ice cores reveal a dramatic cooling within mere decades, an eye blink in land time. Historians are still arguing whether this event was caused by a space rock strike, shifts in ocean flow, or other natural mechanisms. Whatever the trigger, it would have destroyed ecosystems and erased cultures that depended on stable climates. If Antarctica was home to a society during this time, the sudden freeze could have been fatal. The pole shift idea, though controversial, offers one explanation. Charles Hapgood in the mid-20th century proposed that Earth's outer crust could slip over its inner layers, moving continents into new latitudes. In this model, Antarctica may once have been located further north within mild zones before sliding into the polar circle in a disaster-like repositioning. Mainstream land scientists remain doubtful, pointing out the stability of Earth's crust. Still, Hapgood's theory interested figures like Albert Einstein, who acknowledged that crust movement, while unlikely, was not impossible. If true, it would explain how Antarctica could change from lush to frozen in an instant, trapping whatever lived there in the grip of eternal ice. Volcano activity is another possibility. Antarctica is riddled with volcanoes, many still active beneath its ice. Massive eruptions in the past may have filled the skies with ash, blocking sunlight and causing sudden cooling. Evidence of such eruptions appears in ice cores where distinct layers of volcano dust mark episodes of atmospheric upheaval. A single supereruption could have plunged the continent into a new climate state, making survival impossible for any group of people unlucky enough to be present. Space rock impact theories add another dimension. The Wilkes Land Strange Thing, a massive circular feature beneath East Antarctica, has been understood by some as the site of an ancient asteroid strike. If a space body large enough struck the continent, it could have destabilized the climate worldwide, triggered massive floods, and sped up the freezing of Antarctica itself. Supporters of this theory connect it to myths of a world-ending disaster kept in cultures worldwide. To them, the fall of a sky body is the missing link between science and legend. Strange events from human history are sometimes woven into these ideas. Around 10,800 BCE, matching with the start of the Younger Dryas, many large animals suddenly disappeared. Woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant sloths. Scientists who study old things argue over whether this was caused by human overhunting, climate change, or a sudden disaster. The timing between extinctions and sudden cooling suggests something extraordinary. Could this same event have buried Antarctica's forests and any culture that thrived there? Flood myths, too, sound in this context. Nearly every ancient group of people kept stories of sudden flood, Mesopotamian epics, biblical accounts, Greek legends, and Polynesian traditions. Rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age would have drowned vast coastal areas, erasing settlements and forcing migrations. If Antarctica harbored a group of people, its destruction would not have been by flood, but by ice, a disaster equally complete. Perhaps the flood myths are only one half of the story, with the other half buried at the bottom of the world. Historians are still arguing whether myths can be taken as records of real events. Mainstream understandings emphasize their symbolic nature. Yet, when combined with land data, their sound is difficult to dismiss. The memory of sudden destruction encoded in story and ritual might reflect the lived experience of ancestors facing the collapse of worlds. If Antarctica's end was part of that collapse, its memory could linger in fragmented myths scattered across continents. A peculiar off-topic observation highlights how sudden climate shifts can erase entire ecosystems. In Siberia, frozen mammoths have been found with undigested food still in their stomachs, as if they were flash-frozen in place. Some guess this shows a disaster-like temperature drop that killed them within hours. If such a freeze could strike Siberia, then perhaps Antarctica suffered a similar fate. Its forests and rivers transformed almost overnight into frozen wastelands. The mammoths, silent in their icy graves, become grim parallels for what a human culture might endure under similar conditions. The question of disaster ties Antarctica to broader patterns of human history. Every known group of people bears scars of collapse. Drought ended the Akkadian Empire. Earthquakes shattered Minoan Crete. Volcano eruptions buried Pompeii. If Antarctica was once home to the first group of people, its destruction would be the ultimate collapse. So complete that its ruins remain locked away, invisible, yet kept beneath the weight of ice. Unlike other groups of people, erased but rediscovered, Antarctica's legacy remains hidden, its evidence tantalizingly out of reach. The story of disaster is therefore not just about science or myth. It is about the fragility of human achievement. Groups of people rise slowly through generations of labor only to vanish in moments when the Earth shifts. Antarctica reminds us of this truth. If it held the first culture on Earth, then its sudden burial is the greatest lesson in humility we could imagine. Even the mightiest achievements can be silenced by ice and time. For centuries, long before modern science began peeling back Antarctica's secrets, the continent existed as little more than a shadow on maps and a rumor whispered by sailors. The age of exploration brought with it both discovery and invention as adventurers, merchants, and empires expanded their horizons across oceans. Within this time, Antarctica began to shift from mythical terra australis incognita, the unknown southern land, to a place explorers desperately sought. Driven by promises of wealth, strategic advantage, or simple curiosity. The idea of terra australis had haunted maps since ancient times. But during the Renaissance, it took on fresh life. Mapmakers like Gerardus Mercator filled the bottom of their charts with vast imagined continents decorated with mountains, forests, and guest cities. These pictures were not based on evidence, but on belief. If there was land in the north, there must be land in the south to balance it. Explorers took these maps seriously, setting sail in search of riches hidden at the bottom of the world. Historians are still arguing whether these voyages were driven more by scientific curiosity or by empire greed hidden in scholarly justification. One of the first real trips into southern waters came in 1520 when Ferdinand Magellan's fleet rounded the tip of South America. From those icy seas, sailors glimpsed lands dotted with glaciers and storms so fierce that they believed themselves near the edge of the world. Though they never saw Antarctica itself, the reports fueled guessing that a great continent lay just beyond the horizon. Later voyages by Francis Drake and others deepened the sense of mystery, confirming dangerous waters, but leaving the southern land tantalizingly out of reach. By the 17th century, explorers like Abel Tasman and James Cook began to push further into southern latitudes. Tasman's journeys revealed New Zealand and Tasmania, islands that some believed were fragments of the great southern continent. Cook's voyages in the 1770s shattered many of these illusions. He sailed further south than anyone before him, skirting the Antarctic Circle and meeting endless fields of ice. While Cook never set foot on the continent, he concluded that if a southern land existed, it was unwelcoming and barren. His verdict discouraged further exploration for decades. Yet the mystery remained unresolved. Despite Cook's doubt, rumors continued. Whalers and seal hunters operating in the southern oceans occasionally reported glimpses of strange coastlines or lands covered in ice. Some of these accounts turned out to be subantarctic islands, while others may have been illusions created by atmospheric distortions. But the continuation of these sightings kept alive the idea that something vast and unknown still waited in the south. The 19th century marked a turning point. In 1820, multiple trips, Russian, British, and American, independently claimed the first official sighting of the Antarctic continent. The race to confirm its existence was on. Over the following decades, explorers like James Clark Ross mapped parts of the coastline, discovering landmarks such as the Ross Ice Shelf and the volcano Mount Erebus. These missions confirmed that Antarctica was real, huge, and scary. Yet, its interior remained sealed by ice, offering no hint of what lay beneath. To the public, the discovery of Antarctica blended science with legend. Newspapers and journals guessed about what resources might lie hidden beneath the ice. Some imagined fertile lands, others mineral wealth, and still others whispered of ruins from a forgotten age. The continent became a screen for projection, where fact and fantasy blurred together. Even serious scientists could not entirely resist the attraction of imagining what the ice might hide. One particularly strange episode occurred in 1838 during the United States exploring trip led by Charles Wilkes. Sailors claimed to have seen vast mountain ranges along the coast, which later maps recorded as Wilkes Land. When later trips failed to find such features, historians debated whether the sailors had mistaken clouds and icebergs for mountains. Yet, in the 20th century, radar imaging revealed genuine strange things beneath Wilkes Land, reigniting guessing that the sailors had glimpsed more than they realized. This curious coming together of error and discovery highlights how Antarctica resists certainty, blending illusion with reality. For European empires, the age of exploration was not just about science but also about control. A continent untouched by human living represented not only mystery, but potential control. Maps drawn in the 18th and 19th centuries often carved Antarctica into imaginary territories claimed in advance of any actual settlement. Britain, France, and later Germany, and the United States all sought symbolic possession of the land, even as its ice made colonization impossible. In this way, Antarctica became part of the same empire imagination that carved Africa, Asia, and the Americas into areas of influence. Guessing about hidden groups of people occasionally accompanied these empire ventures. The idea that Antarctica might be the site of Atlantis gained attention in fringe circles during the 19th century. Writers pointed to the continent's size, isolation, and sudden burial in ice as evidence that it could match Plato's Lost Island. Though mainstream historians dismissed the connection, the link proved remarkably strong. It resurfaced time and again, merging with new discoveries and lending the southern continent an air of forbidden history. By the late 19th century, exploration shifted towards science. Trips like those of Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton sought to enter Antarctica's interior, racing toward the South Pole. These journeys revealed more about the continent's icy emptiness than its hidden past. Yet, even as explorers froze, starved, and died on the ice, rumors continued that beneath their feet lay something extraordinary. Shackleton himself guessed that the continent might hide coal, minerals, or even oil, resources that could one day reshape worldwide power. Others, less practical, whispered of ruins, artifacts, and knowledge that might overturn history. An off-topic but informative example comes from the same time. In 1909, explorers in the Arctic reported finding strange space rock fragments and strange fossils in Greenland's ice. Though unrelated to Antarctica, these discoveries showed how polar regions often keep the unexpected, serving as time capsules of deep history. If Greenland could yield such surprises, why not Antarctica, whose ice is thicker and older still? The comparison kept alive the possibility that the southern continent might be more than empty ice. Thus, the age of exploration set the stage. It transformed Antarctica from myth to reality, from blank space on maps to a land of ice and mystery. But it also layered the continent with stories of sailors glimpsing mountains through fog, of mapmakers sketching imagined coastlines, of empires carving claims into the unknown. All these stories reinforced a simple truth. Antarctica invites guessing. Even when explorers saw nothing but ice, they imagined what lay beneath. And it is in that imagination, as much as in land study or the study of old things, that the possibility of a hidden group of people continues to survive. By the dawn of the 19th century, Antarctica had moved from a half-imagined continent on maps into a real reality that explorers could glimpse from the decks of their ships. Yet, seeing its frozen coasts was only the beginning. Once the continent's existence was confirmed, the world's powers began to compete for knowledge, reputation, and possession. The result was a scientific race to Antarctica, one that blended genuine curiosity with empire ambition, producing both winds of discovery and new layers of mystery. The 19th century was an age of endless exploration. Scientific societies in Europe eager to map every corner of the globe turned their attention south. In 1839, a French trip led by Jules Dumont d'Urville claimed a portion of the continent for France, naming it Adelie Land. Around the same time, American explorer Charles Wilkes led his fleet into the Antarctic seas, producing maps that suggested a vast landmass rather than mere islands. Meanwhile, the British naval officer James Clark Ross undertook his own trip, discovering the huge Ross Ice Shelf and two great volcanoes, Mount Erebus and Mount Terror. These trips together confirmed Antarctica as a continent. But they also sparked competition between nations, each eager to write their flags on its icy surface. For these explorers, science and national pride were inseparable. Every new coastline mapped, every land sample collected was both a contribution to knowledge and a claim of ownership. The British Royal Society, the French Academy of Sciences, and the American scientific establishment all sought to be first in charting the southernmost frontiers. Behind the scientific appearance was a familiar story. Empires carving their presence into unclaimed territory, each determined not to let rivals gain an advantage. The race got stronger in the early 20th century with the so-called heroic age of Antarctic exploration. Robert Falcon Scott, Ernest Shackleton, and Roald Amundsen became names written into history. Their journeys a mixture of scientific work and epic survival. Amundsen's successful reach of the South Pole in 1911 marked a win for Norway, while Scott's unlucky trip, ending in death mere miles from a supply spot, became a symbol of tragic endurance. Shackleton's endurance trip, trapped in ice and forced into a miraculous escape, remains one of the greatest survival stories ever told. These trips were not simply about exploration. They were about proving human endurance against the most hostile environment on Earth. And yet, amid the heroism and national competition, whispers of something deeper came up. Stories spread of strange discoveries, unusual formations glimpsed on the horizon, and artifacts found and quickly dismissed. Shackleton himself, while searching for coal deposits, reported unusual land features that seemed hard to explain. Though explained as natural, some of these descriptions echoed with the kind of shapes fans later grabbed onto as evidence of lost structures. Whether imagination or wrong understanding, Antarctica's emptiness once again served as a canvas for human guessing. Historians are still arguing how much of the heroic trips was driven by science and how much by empire. While trips carried land scientists, biologists, and weather scientists, the world politics stakes were never far behind. Nations wanted to secure reputation, but they also wanted to know whether Antarctica held resources, minerals, coal, or oil that could fuel industrial might. In this sense, the scientific race was also an economic one. The frozen continent was imagined not only as a wilderness of ice, but also as a potential treasure chest locked beneath glaciers. The scientific instruments of the time were limited, yet they yielded surprising insights. Barometers, thermometers, and simple rock tools revealed how hostile the environment truly was, with temperatures dropping far below anything known in the north. At the same time, fossils of ancient plants and evidence of past climates hinted that the continent had once been warm, forested, and alive. Such revelations unsettled neat stories of Earth's geography, forcing scientists to reckon with deep time and shifting climates. If Antarctica could once host forests, then the line between present ice and past fertility became thinner than expected. One peculiar off-topic event shows the strange atmosphere of discovery. In 1909, during Shackleton's Nimrod trip, the team discovered a colony of emperor penguins keeping eggs warm in the dead of winter. At the time, this seemed so unlikely that it was considered one of the great biological mysteries. Later, scientists confirmed that emperor penguins are uniquely adapted to such conditions. But in 1909, the sight of life thriving in darkness and cold seemed almost supernatural. To some, it raised the question of what other forms of life, perhaps even human, might have once adapted to Antarctica's extremes. The scientific race also revealed Antarctica's ability to hide. Even as explorers mapped coastlines, the interior remained untouchable, hidden in storms and ice. Trips that attempted to enter inland faced unimaginable hardships. Sledges broke. Food supplies dwindled. Frostbite destroyed crews. The sheer difficulty of exploration created gaps in knowledge where guessing could grow. For every mapped bay or sampled rock, there were hundreds of miles of untouched land that no one had ever seen. Into that emptiness, imaginations projected ruins, cities, and groups of people buried deep beneath the snow. By the mid-20th century, the race to Antarctica was made official into something larger. With the start of the Cold War, the continent became a stage not only for science, but for strategic competition. Military operations like the U.S. Navy's Operation High Jump in 1946 sent vast fleets into Antarctic waters, supposedly for research, but also for training in polar warfare. The scale of these missions, ships, planes, thousands of men, sparked rumors of hidden discoveries, secret bases, and hidden knowledge. Official reports spoke only of scientific goals, but the secrecy and scale fed guessing that Antarctica's mysteries were too great to be shared openly. The scientific race, then, was never only about science. It was about reputation, empire, resources, and perhaps secrets. While mainstream history records the achievements of explorers and the growth of knowledge, an undercurrent of guessing has always continued. That among the ice and storms, something extraordinary was glimpsed, then hidden, waiting for another age to uncover. By the mid-20th century, after centuries of guessing and decades of dangerous trips, Antarctica had finally been confirmed as the last great continent. Its coastlines were mapped, its mountains named, and its ice measured. Yet strangely, as knowledge grew, so did quietness. For the first time in human history, an entire landmass was deliberately shielded from settlement, colonization, and use. This quietness, written into law, became both a win of international cooperation and a fertile ground for rumors of secrecy. The turning point came in 1959 with the signing of the Antarctic Treaty. At the height of the Cold War, when the world was split into hostile blocs, 12 nations agreed to freeze all territory claims and dedicate Antarctica solely to peaceful scientific research. No military bases, no nuclear testing, no mining or resource taking. This extraordinary agreement was unprecedented. A rare moment when rival nations set aside competition. For scientists, it was a victory. Antarctica would be a continent of knowledge rather than conquest. For the public, however, the treaty's limits raised suspicion. Why lock away an entire continent? What exactly was being protected? Historians are still arguing the reasons behind the Antarctic Treaty. Was it a practical response to the impossibility of colonizing such a hostile land? Or was it a way to prevent conflict over hidden resources? Some even suggest that the treaty hid discoveries too shocking to be revealed. Artifacts, ruins, or evidence of a group of people buried beneath the ice. While mainstream historians dismiss this as conspiracy, the secrecy surrounding military trips like Operation High Jump fueled the idea that Antarctica was not merely empty ice. The great quietness was not only political but physical. The sheer scale of the continent and the difficulty of access meant that large regions remained entirely unexplored. Even today, satellites provide only partial clarity. Under-ice lakes, valleys, and mountains remain invisible to the human eye. What lies beneath 3 miles of ice can only be guessed at through indirect measurements. This absence of evidence is fertile ground for imagination. In the quietness, myths take root. One of the most interesting aspects of this quietness is the limit on digging. Under the treaty, drilling and digging are heavily controlled to protect the environment. Large-scale digs for old things are impossible. Thus, even if ruins or artifacts did exist beneath the ice, international law would prevent their discovery. For thinkers who suspect a cover-up, this limit is proof enough. The world's powers have agreed to quietness. For scientists, it is a necessary safeguard to keep a fragile ecosystem. The truth, perhaps, is a mixture of both. Secrecy during the Cold War only deepened the mystery. Both the United States and the Soviet Union conducted large-scale operations in Antarctica under the guise of research. The presence of military equipment and personnel along with limited access to certain zones suggested to outsiders that more was happening than was admitted. Documents released later revealed the strategic value of polar training and the potential interest in natural resources. Yet to those already convinced of hidden groups of people, such secrecy appeared as confirmation. Even today, Antarctica is one of the least photographed and least visited places on Earth. Tourists are confined to a few coastal areas. Scientists operate in scattered stations focused on narrow fields of research. Vast regions remain untouched without even a footprint to mark them. This absence of human presence reinforces the quietness. There is no one to verify or dismiss the strange things reported in satellite imagery. No one to follow up on rumors of structures or artifacts glimpsed beneath the ice. A strange off-topic event shows how quietness breeds guessing. In 2001, a team of researchers drilling into an under-ice lake in Antarctica reported unusual tiny life forms unlike any seen before. Though later studies suggested contamination, rumors spread rapidly of organisms surviving untouched for millions of years. For those already ready to believe in hidden groups of people, the leap was easy. If microbes could survive in isolation, why not traces of human activity? The quietness of Antarctica meant such questions lingered unanswered. The Antarctic Treaty remains in effect today, renewed and expanded by dozens of nations. Its success is often praised as a model of peaceful cooperation. Yet its very success ensures that Antarctica will remain veiled. Large-scale digging, mining, or exploration of the interior is forbidden. Whatever lies beneath will remain hidden by law as much as by ice. And so, Antarctica has become not only a physical quietness, but a cultural one. Scientists speak cautiously, bound by data and rules. Governments speak rarely, bound by treaties and secrecy. In this emptiness, the public imagination thrives, weaving stories of lost groups of people, alien bases, and forbidden discoveries. Whether such stories are true or not matters less than the fact that they continue, fed by quietness. If Antarctica does hide the remains of the first group of people, then humanity has chosen, consciously or not to uncover it. Instead, the continent lies untouched, its secrets kept by law, by ice, and by quietness. Perhaps this is a win of wisdom, protecting a fragile environment. Or perhaps it is a tragedy, leaving a buried history forever unknown. The quietness surrounding Antarctica has not stopped guessing. It has made it louder. If a group of people once existed beneath the ice, thinkers argue, then it may not only have survived, but thrived, developing technologies far beyond what we connect with early humanity. Such claims live in the blurred space between the study of old things, myth, and science fiction. Yet they continue because they offer explanations for strange things that history alone cannot neatly contain. The question is not simply whether Antarctica once held people, but whether those people were keepers of knowledge and technology that vanished with the ice. The idea of ancient advanced technology often begins with buildings. Around the world, huge stone monuments, massive stone monuments, stand as testaments to early skill. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, and the huge stones of Baalbek challenge easy explanation with primitive tools. Mainstream study of old things attributes these to extraordinary human effort, skill, and organization. Alternative theories, however, suggest they represent knowledge inherited from a far older source. If such a source existed, Antarctica provides a believable candidate. A group of people flourishing in a warmer time might have mastered techniques later kept and adapted by survivors who migrated northward. Historians are still arguing how early humans achieved feats of navigation and construction that seemed out of proportion to their tools. The Polynesians navigated the Pacific without compasses, guided by stars and ocean swells. The builders of Göbekli Tepe 11,000 years ago carved huge pillars long before farming or writing. If these accomplishments reflect forgotten knowledge, Antarctica might once have been a center from which such wisdom spread outward. Some even argue that the maps showing ice-free coastlines are themselves a form of technology, evidence of map-making methods lost to history. Energy is another area where guessing thrives. Ancient myths often describe mysterious sources of power. In Egyptian temples, carvings understood as light bulbs suggest lighting without fire. Indian texts speak of flying machines powered by unknown forces. To fringe thinkers, these are not metaphors but memories of advanced technology, fragments of a group of people erased by disaster. Antarctica, isolated and land-active, may have provided a unique environment for trying things with heat from inside the Earth, or even more strange sources. The presence of volcano hotspots beneath its ice today adds fuel to the idea that natural power was once used there. One particularly controversial idea suggests that Antarctica may have housed worldwide centers for star study. Its clear southern skies and closeness to the sky pole would have offered a unique vantage for observing the stars. If ancient builders aligned monuments worldwide to sky bodies, as in Egypt and Mesoamerica, perhaps those practices began in Antarctica observatories now buried under ice. While mainstream historians argue such alignments arose independently, the possibility of a shared origin continues to attract guessing. Off-topic, but informative, is the discovery of the Antikythera mechanism in Greece, a 2,000-year-old device that functioned as a star-studying computer. Its existence demonstrates that advanced technology can appear, vanish, and be forgotten only to resurface centuries later. If such skill could be lost in recorded history, how much more might be erased in prehistory? Antarctica, sealed under ice, could be hiding inventions of equal or greater skill, kept in ruins we have yet to uncover. Some thinkers go further, suggesting that Antarctica was once part of a worldwide network of groups of people. They point to similarities in pyramid construction across Egypt, Mesoamerica, and Asia, arguing for a shared technological origin. If Antarctica held a group of people capable of influencing distant lands, then it may have served as the hub of this network. Trade, migration, or even cultural exchange could explain parallels that mainstream study of old things struggles to attribute to coincidence alone. Historians remain cautious. Most argue that there is no evidence of advanced technology in prehistory beyond what human societies could achieve with skill and persistence. They point out that extraordinary effort, not extraordinary machines, built the pyramids. Yet even within mainstream scholarship, surprises continue to appear. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe pushed back huge buildings by thousands of years. The skill of Stone Age art, navigation, and social organization continues to challenge assumptions about primitive humanity. If our ancestors were more capable than previously believed, then imagining them trying things with technology in unexpected places, including Antarctica, is not entirely unreasonable. One peculiar story often mentioned in fringe discussions comes from Operation High Jump in 1946. Some reports claim that U.S. Navy pilots observed strange craft, disc-shaped objects moving at extraordinary speed near the Antarctic coast. Official records attribute such stories to rumor and Cold War paranoia, but for thinkers they suggest remnants of advanced technology hidden in the ice. Whether understood as alien or human, the connection with Antarctica reinforces its image as a vault of secrets. Even without such dramatic claims, Antarctica's land study provides possibilities. Under-ice lakes like Vostok may keep not only unique ecosystems, but also evidence of human or artificial action. An advanced culture might have built beneath the ice using heat from inside the Earth and underground structures for shelter. Radar strange things understood as artificial grids or rectangular features could be remnants of such constructions, though mainstream science attributes them to natural processes. The quietness of Antarctica prevents resolution. Without digging, ideas remain suspended between possibility and impossibility. Ultimately, the idea of ancient technology in Antarctica challenges our definition of groups of people. If we limit groups of people to writing, cities, and farming, then Antarctica seems unlikely. But if we broaden it to include organized societies capable of navigation, construction, and innovation, then the idea gains traction. A culture thriving in a warm Antarctica could have developed technologies suited to its environment. Technologies that, when buried beneath ice, vanished without a trace. The question lingers. Was humanity's first experiment with organized society lost in Antarctica's freeze, its tools and knowledge buried beyond reach, or are we simply projecting our fascination with lost technology onto a continent whose quietness invites invention? For now, the ice guards its answer, leaving us with this tantalizing contradiction. The more Antarctica resists discovery, the more its hidden technology, real or imagined, seemed believable. As the 20th century unfolded, Antarctica's puzzle deepened with the spread of modern technologies, satellites, aerial photography, and ground-penetrating radar. Each new tool sharpened our view of the continent, yet paradoxically also multiplied its mysteries. Claims of controversial discoveries began to ripple beyond academic journals into popular imagination, and Antarctica became a magnet for both serious scientific guessing and uncontrolled fantasy. Among these claims, a few stand out as continuing, unsettling, and unresolved. One of the most widely spread is the report of pyramid-shaped mountains captured in satellite imagery. The sharp triangle peaks rising from the Antarctic plateau bear strange resemblance to man-made pyramids. To land scientists, these are nunataks, natural mountains sticking through the ice, shaped by wind and ice wearing away. Yet to others, their matching shapes seem too perfect to dismiss. The comparison with Egyptian pyramids has become irresistible, and images of Antarctica's pyramids continue to spark debate online and in alternative research circles. Historians are still arguing whether this resemblance is a coincidence of land study or evidence of something constructed long ago. Another controversial case centers on radar strange things beneath the ice. In the 1990s, scientific teams conducting surveys in East Antarctica detected vast rectangular formations buried under miles of ice cover. The data showed patterns suggestive of straight lines and grid-like structures, highly unusual in natural land study. While most researchers understood these strange things as the result of fault lines or ice movements, others proposed the possibility of artificial buildings. Without digging, the question remains unresolved, feeding guessing that these might be remnants of a group of people erased by ice. Operation High Jump, a U.S. Navy mission in 1946-47, has also become a lightning rod for guessing. Officially, the operation was a large-scale exercise in polar training involving 4,700 men, ships, and aircraft. Its goals included establishing bases and testing equipment in extreme conditions. Yet, the mission ended suddenly after only a few months, sparking rumors that something extraordinary was met. In later decades, stories came up that pilots reported strange craft moving at impossible speeds above the Antarctic skies. Though unverified, these accounts have become part of Antarctica's mythology, mentioned as evidence of either hidden advanced technology or contact with something beyond human history. A more recent controversy erupted in 2012 when reports spread of vast dome structures beneath the Antarctic ice supposedly detected by satellite. Images spreading online showed circular patterns suggestive of massive buried installations. Scientists dismissed them as natural formations, ice domes shaped by heat from inside the Earth and ice flow. Yet for many, the resemblance to artificial structures was too strong to ignore. The idea of hidden bases, either ancient or modern, remains one of Antarctica's most continuing conspiracy theories. Beyond technology and strange things, there are also strange reports of biological discoveries. In 2013, Russian scientists drilling into Lake Vostok announced the recovery of unusual DNA sequences unlike any known organisms. Although later analysis attributed this to contamination, the story fed guessing of undiscovered life forms kept beneath the ice. For some, this raised the tantalizing possibility that not only microbes, but perhaps traces of more complex life or even human remains could exist in such untouched environments. The quietness around the true results of these studies only deepens suspicion. A peculiar off-topic event highlights how fragile evidence can be in extreme conditions. In 1965, A group of British scientists working at Halley Station reported finding metallic fragments embedded in ice. Later analysis identified them as remnants of a space rock. Yet at the time, rumors spread that the fragments were artificial, part of a machine long buried in the ice. The explanation was ordinary, but the initial story demonstrated how quickly strange things in Antarctica transform into extraordinary claims. Controversial discoveries extend beyond science into world politics. During the Cold War, both Soviet and American forces established bases deep in Antarctica, often limiting access to surrounding regions. Satellite imagery occasionally revealed unusual structures, grids of tunnels, storage facilities, and airstrips quickly explained as practical necessities. But secrecy bred suspicion. To those convinced of hidden truths, these bases were understood as attempts to access or hide ancient ruins beneath the ice. Perhaps the most thought-provoking theory ties these discoveries together with myths of Atlantis. If Plato's description of a lost group of people destroyed by sudden disaster is viewed through the lens of Antarctica, then pyramid-shaped mountains, radar strange things, and unexplained DNA sequences become fragments of a coherent story. Supporters argue that Atlantis was not a sunken island, but a frozen continent. The sudden burial of a group of people beneath ice, they claim, would match both myth and evidence. Mainstream historians reject this understanding, but it remains one of the most popular narratives in guessing history. The continuation of controversial discoveries reflects a deeper truth. Antarctica's being hard to access makes certainty impossible. A pyramid-like mountain can be explained as land study, but until dug, it will always retain an aura of possibility. A radar strange thing can be dismissed as natural, but the very act of hiding within miles of ice fuels the imagination. Antarctica functions as a mirror for human hopes and fears, the ultimate unknown, capable of holding anything from lost groups of people to alien technology. And so, the continent's greatest discoveries may be those not yet confirmed. Beneath its quietness lie questions too vast to ignore. Is Antarctica truly a blank wilderness? Or is it the tomb of humanity's forgotten first chapter? Until the ice yields its secrets, every strange thing, pyramids, grids, strange DNA, remains not just controversial, but deeply unsettling. The ice of Antarctica is more than a frozen barrier. It is an archive, a layered book of time in which each page is a year and each chapter a climate time. To scientists, ice cores drilled from the continent are among the most precious records on Earth. They keep within them the history of our atmosphere, the rhythms of ancient climates, and the fingerprints of sudden disasters. For those who guess about lost groups of people, ice cores carry another meaning. They may hold indirect evidence of worlds that flourished before the freeze. Drilling projects such as those at Vostok Station, Dome Sea, and the West Antarctic ice sheet have retrieved cores stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. These cylinders of compressed snow contain bubbles of ancient air, tiny fossils of pollen, volcano ash, and chemical traces that reveal how Earth has changed. From them, scientists have reconstructed cycles of warming and cooling, changes in carbon dioxide, and the start of ice ages. The record is astonishingly precise, down to single years in some layers, and demonstrates how dramatically Earth's climate can shift. One of the most striking revelations from Antarctic ice is the suddenness of change. Around 12,900 years ago, the start of the Younger Dryas cooling appears as a sharp line in the record, a plunge in temperature that reshaped ecosystems worldwide. Historians are still arguing whether this was caused by a space rock impact, a massive outburst of ice meltwater, or shifts in ocean currents. To some, it is exactly the kind of event that could erase an advanced culture almost overnight. If a group of people once thrived in Antarctica's mild valleys, its world may have ended in that sudden descent into ice. The cores also capture evidence of disasters that sound with myth. Layers rich in volcano ash point to huge eruptions that darken skies. Spikes in space dust suggest impacts from space. Each of these events would have changed the climate, disrupted food chains, and forced migrations. Around the world, myths of sudden destruction, floods, fires, freezes may echo these land upheavals. If Antarctica harbored human settlements, the ice cores provide the scientific record of their destruction, even if no artifacts remain. Beyond disaster, the cores hint at fertility. Chemical signs of ancient vegetation, including pollen from trees and grasses, confirm that Antarctica was once green. Some cores even contain traces of sea organisms blown inland, suggesting a warmer climate with open water along the coasts. For those who imagine a group of people there, this is essential proof. Antarctica was not always unlivable. At times, it was a land of rivers and forests capable of supporting life. Strangely, strange things occasionally appear in the cores. Unexplained spikes in methane, sudden shifts in temperature, and traces of compounds not easily attributed to natural processes spark debate. Mainstream scientists understand these as the result of volcano eruptions or unusual climate events. But others wonder, could some be signs of human activity kept as chemical ghosts beneath the ice? A group of people burning, forests, farming, or using fuels might have left atmospheric traces. Without direct artifacts, such evidence would be subtle, but ice cores are sensitive enough to capture it. A strange off-topic case shows this possibility. In Greenland ice cores, scientists have detected traces of lead pollution dating back to Roman times, evidence of ancient smelting that drifted across oceans and settled into polar ice. If Roman industry could leave its mark so far away, then any Antarctic group of people might have done the same. The example is clear. Human activity can be kept in ice for thousands of years. Whether Antarctica contains such traces remains an open question. The role of ice cores extends beyond climate into the question of time. They allow us to peer not just thousands but hundreds of thousands of years into the past. This challenges regular time orders of groups of people which place the rise of organized society only in the last 6,000 years. If evidence of human activity were ever found in deeper layers, it would overturn everything we know about history. To many, this possibility is remote. Yet, the fact that ice cores even allow the question to be asked demonstrates their power to unsettle our assumptions. Historians are still arguing how far back human exploration may have reached. If sailing cultures ventured south during warmer periods, their presence could be faintly kept in the atmosphere, captured as subtle chemical traces. The ice cores may hold these signs, waiting for someone to look. The technology to detect tiny strange things improves each decade, making it possible that one day what now seems guessing may become evidence. The cores also remind us of the fragility of groups of people. The record shows cycles of warming and cooling far beyond human control. Groups of people today may feel secure, but the ice warns otherwise. Climates shift, often suddenly, and entire ecosystems can vanish in decades. If an Antarctic culture once thrived, its fate is not just a mystery, but a warning, written in frozen layers for all time. Thus, the role of ice cores is double. To science, they are a precise record of Earth's past climates. To guessing, they are the archive of forgotten worlds, storing invisible whispers of groups of people erased by ice. Each layer is a message, not only from nature, but perhaps from humanity itself long before our present memory began. If stones and ice keep landscapes, then DNA keeps memory and flesh. For decades, genetic studies have lit up the story of human migration across the globe, tracing lines of descent from Africa into Europe, Asia, Oceania, and the Americas. Yet, when the discussion turns to Antarctica, the southernmost continent appears absent from the human record. No fossils, no skeletal remains, no clear evidence of living. Still, some researchers have asked, could genetic clues in living populations point indirectly to an Antarctic connection? Might fragments of human lineage carry echoes of journeys further south than history records? The story begins with migration. Scientific evidence shows that humans reached South America at least 14,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. From there, cultures adapted to the Andes, the Amazon, and the windswept coasts of Patagonia. The sailing traditions of early South American peoples remain less studied than those of Polynesia. Yet, coastal cultures would have had access to rich sea resources and the skills to build boats capable of long voyages. If humans reached the tip of South America, could some have sailed further still toward a then warmer Antarctica? Historians are still arguing whether such journeys were doable, but DNA might one day provide answers where the study of old things cannot. Modern genetics reveal surprising connections across oceans. Studies of Polynesian DNA show traces of contact with South America long before European arrival, suggesting voyages spanning thousands of miles. Similarly, South American lineages contain hints of ancient input from Pacific peoples. If such unlikely journeys occurred, then the gap between South America and Antarctica, a fraction of that distance, seems less impossible. If even a small group ventured south, their genetic legacy could continue in the mitochondrial DNA of modern populations. One interesting discovery comes from research on the Yagan people of Tierra del Fuego at the southernmost tip of South America. Their adaptations to cold sea conditions, insulating body systems, high metabolic rates, and remarkable sailing skills suggest a deep history of survival in harsh environments. While no evidence directly links them to Antarctica, some anthropologists guess that their ancestors may have explored or at least saw the continent during warmer periods. If so, fragments of their DNA could carry a memory of Antarctica, hidden not in ruins, but in chromosomes. Elsewhere, traces of puzzling ancestry appear in native South American populations. Some studies show genetic signs not easily explained by known migration routes, raising questions about forgotten lineages. While mainstream science attributes these to complex pre-Columbian interactions, alternative understandings suggest that unrecorded contacts, perhaps even with peoples moved from southern regions, might be involved. Though guessing, the possibility adds another layer to the mystery of Antarctica's role in human prehistory. DNA evidence also meets with myths. Polynesian traditions of distant southern lands, Andean legends of gods arriving from across the sea, and even Greek tales of Terra Australis suggest memories of contact beyond known routes. If such journeys occurred, however rare, their legacy might survive only in genes. Modern genetic mapping is sensitive enough to detect faint signals of ancient mixture, raising the possibility that Antarctica's human history, if it existed, might be written not in stones or ice, but in living bloodlines. A curious off-topic example demonstrates how genetics can reveal forgotten journeys. In 2007, scientists discovered that chickens in South America carried a genetic marker found only in Polynesian populations, suggesting pre-Columbian contact across the Pacific. For centuries, historians doubted such contact was possible, but DNA proved otherwise. This shows how genetic evidence can confirm unlikely voyages once dismissed as myth. If Polynesians reached South America, why not South Americans or their ancestors reaching Antarctica, leaving behind faint genetic signs waiting to be uncovered? There is also the question of non-human DNA. Antarctica's fossil record contains evidence of forests, dinosaurs, and ancient amphibians. More recently, ice cores and under-ice lakes have yielded microbes kept for millions of years. Some geneticists argue that these tiny lineages may hold secrets about ancient climates, migrations, or even human contact. For example, if unusual human-associated microbes were ever found deep beneath the ice, they could suggest past living. Though such findings remain unconfirmed, the prospect is tantalizing. Life itself may testify where ruins remain hidden. Historians are still arguing how far humans ranged during the last ice age. While regular wisdom limits their expansion to Africa, Eurasia, Oceania, and the Americas, new scientific sites continually push back dates and expand ranges. If people reached Australia by sea 50,000 years ago, if they crossed into the Americas by 15,000 years ago, then reaching a livable Antarctica during warm periods does not seem beyond possibility. Genetic evidence could be the missing bridge, pointing to contacts unrecorded in stone. One strange observation adds to the puzzle. In 2010, a genetic study suggested a mysterious ghost population contributed DNA to Native Americans with no clear origin. Some scientists propose an early migration from Asia. Others argue for unrecognized local diversity. To alternative thinkers, this ghost population could reflect a lineage moved from Antarctica or nearby regions during disaster-like climate change. Though guessing, it underscores how much remains unknown in the story of human movement. The connection between DNA and Antarctica is not yet proven, but the potential is huge. As genetic mapping improves, faint traces of forgotten peoples may surface, challenging established time orders. If any lineage once touched Antarctica, however briefly, it may still whisper through the genomes of their descendants. The continent itself may remain quiet, but the living world could carry its memory forward, encoded in the deepest strands of human inheritance. When guessing about Antarctica reaches its most extreme edges, two competing possibilities come up. One is entirely human, that a forgotten group of people, perhaps the first organized culture on Earth, flourished on the continent during a warm time before being destroyed by ice. The other is more extreme, that the continent was once home to something not entirely human at all, an alien presence, an ancient visitor whose technology or influence became mixed with early humanity. Both ideas continue, not because of proof, but because of Antarctica's quietness, which seems to invite narratives too vast to ignore. The alien idea often begins with strange things. Radar scans detecting geometric shapes beneath the ice, pyramid-like peaks rising above glaciers, or unexplained metallic fragments have been understood as signs of alien structures. Supporters point to Operation High Jump and later military secrecy as evidence of hidden contact, claiming governments hid knowledge of advanced craft found under Antarctic ice. While mainstream historians dismiss such ideas as conspiracy theories, the continuation of these claims reveals how Antarctica's being hard to access fuels the imagination. The absence of evidence becomes paradoxically a form of evidence in itself. Human-centered explanations, by contrast, focus on continuity. They argue that Antarctica was not an alien outpost, but a cradle of early culture, a place where human skill first tried things with buildings, navigation, and star study. In this view, myths of gods descending from the sky or arriving from the sea are symbolic memories of migrations from Antarctica after disaster. Survivors may have carried fragments of knowledge northward, seeding the growth of groups of people in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. To supporters, this theory keeps human action while still explaining strange things in maps, myths, and monuments. Historians are still arguing how myths of divine origin should be understood. Were gods literal beings, perhaps advanced humans or visitors from beyond Earth? Or were they metaphors for ancestors, teachers, or natural forces? The Egyptian Zep-Tepi, the Sumerian Anunnaki, the Incan Viracocha all describe beings who came from elsewhere bringing knowledge. For some, these stories confirm alien involvement. For others, they point to moved peoples migrating from lands now lost, perhaps even Antarctica itself. The alien idea is not without example in cultural imagination. In the mid-20th century, authors such as Erich von Däniken popularized the idea of ancient astronauts, arguing that humanity's sudden leaps in technology were sparked by alien guidance. The huge buildings of Egypt, Mesoamerica, and Asia was presented as evidence of contact with beings possessing superior knowledge. Critics highlight flaws in this reasoning, noting that human societies are fully capable of such achievements. Yet, the theory continues, particularly when combined with Antarctica's secrecy. If alien technology were ever discovered, Antarctica, remote, unwelcoming, and tightly controlled, would be an ideal place to hide it. An unusual off-topic episode adds a curious twist. In 1982, a Soviet research team near Lake Vostok reported unusual magnetic strange things beneath the ice. While officially explained as land-related, rumors spread that massive metallic structures lay buried there. Some thinkers claimed this was evidence of alien bases or ancient machinery. To scientists, it was another reminder of Antarctica's complex land study. Yet, the continuation of the story demonstrates how quickly unexplained data changes into narratives of otherworldly involvement. Human-centered theories, however, may offer a subtler explanation. If Antarctica once supported a thriving human culture, it could explain myths of lost lands and gods without bringing in aliens. Survivors forced northward by disaster may have appeared to other cultures as outsiders with unusual knowledge. Farmers, builders, or astronomers far more advanced than local populations. Over generations, memory of these people could have transformed into myths of divine beings. In this view, the aliens of legend may have been humans from Antarctica, carrying the legacy of a group of people erased by ice. The debate between alien and human origins reflects deeper tensions in how history is told. The alien idea removes responsibility from humanity, attributing our achievements to outside action. The human idea, though equally guessing, emphasizes strength and continuity, that our ancestors, given time and opportunity, were capable of greatness even in places we now consider unlivable. Both understandings spring from the same soil, the mysteries left unanswered by Antarctica's quietness. Historians remain cautious. No artifacts, no writings, no verifiable evidence connects Antarctica with either human groups of people or alien presence. Yet the continuation of guessing shows how deeply people yearn for explanations beyond the ordinary. A frozen continent larger than Europe, locked away by law and nature, is the perfect vessel for those yearnings. Whether as Atlantis reborn or as an alien vault, Antarctica provides a canvas vast enough for both doubt and wonder. In the end, the question may be less about what Antarctica hides and more about what humanity projects onto it. To some, it is the lost homeland of gods. To others, the birthplace of groups of people. To others, still the ultimate outpost of alien contact. Each theory reflects the same human impulse to fill quietness with story, to turn absence into meaning. And so, Antarctica remains, a place where human roots and alien mysteries mix, waiting for the ice to yield its secrets. If the whispers of hidden groups of people and alien influence were not enough, the 20th century layered Antarctica with another dimension of intrigue, war, and conspiracy. At a time when worldwide powers were locked in military competition, Antarctica, remote, hostile, and officially devoted to peace, became a canvas for some of the most continuing rumors in modern history. Military trips, sudden secrecy, and Cold War paranoia all combined to create the impression that something extraordinary lay hidden beneath the ice, something worth guarding at all costs. The most famous of these episodes is Operation High Jump, launched by the United States Navy in 1946-47. Officially, it was described as a massive training exercise designed to test equipment and personnel in polar conditions. Yet, the scale of the mission was extraordinary. Over 4,000 men, 13 ships, and dozens of aircraft were sent to Antarctica. Led by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the operation mapped thousands of miles of coastline, gathered scientific data, and established temporary bases, but it ended suddenly after only a few months, far sooner than planned. The early ending of Operation High Jump fueled rumors almost immediately. Some guessed that the fleet had met hostile forces, strange aircraft or advanced technology buried beneath the ice. Stories spread of pilots reporting disc-shaped craft moving at impossible speeds outmaneuvering U.S. planes. Though unverified, these accounts became woven into the law of Antarctica, mentioned as evidence of either hidden human technology or something non-human. Historians are still arguing whether these rumors arose from wrong understandings, deliberate false information, or genuine strange things. The Nazi connection added another layer of intrigue. In the late 1930s, Germany launched the New Swabia trip, sending a ship to survey parts of Antarctica and lay symbolic territory claims. After World War II, rumors spread that the Nazis had established secret bases beneath the ice, perhaps even housing advanced weapons or remnants of a lost group of people. Some theories went further, suggesting that Operation High Jump was launched specifically to locate and neutralize these bases. While mainstream history records little beyond basic exploration, the myth of a Nazi-Antarctic connection endures, fed by wartime secrecy and post-war paranoia. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union maintained scientific stations in Antarctica. Officially, these were devoted to research, but their presence in such unwelcoming conditions raised suspicions. Military equipment was often present. Communications were limited, and movements were watched. For those inclined to suspicion, this looked less like science and more like watching of something hidden. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959, while celebrated as a win of peace, also made conspiracy theories stronger. By forbidding military activity and limiting access, it appeared to some as a worldwide pact of quietness, ensuring that whatever secrets lay beneath the ice would remain hidden. A peculiar off-topic example highlights how easily Antarctic discoveries could slip into conspiracy. In 1973, a U.S. satellite detected an unusual double flash of light near the Prince Edward Islands close to the Antarctic Circle. Dubbed the Vela Incident, it was widely suspected to be a nuclear test conducted by South Africa or Israel. Yet, some fringe accounts suggested it was connected to hidden technology in Antarctica, perhaps even a weapon dug from beneath the ice. The official explanation remains incomplete, and the ambiguity only deepened Antarctica's reputation as a place where truth and secrecy collide. Legends of underground caverns further enrich the tapestry of conspiracy. Reports from early explorers and whalers sometimes described unusual warm pockets where heat from inside the Earth activity created ice-free valleys. In the modern time, satellite images have revealed such oases, areas where volcano heat maintains liquid lakes beneath the ice. To scientists, these are fascinating natural laboratories. To thinkers, they are the perfect hiding places for secret bases, whether ancient or modern. The idea that governments or militaries might be hiding discoveries in these hidden valleys has become a staple of Antarctic law. Historians are still arguing the extent to which conspiracy theories distort genuine history. There is no evidence that Operation High Jump engaged in combat with flying discs, nor that Nazi bases survived beneath the ice. Yet, the continuation of these stories demonstrates how Antarctica's remoteness makes it fertile ground for guessing. A continent locked away by treaties where only scientists and military personnel have access naturally invites suspicion. The less the world is allowed to know, the more it imagines. And yet, not all is imagination. Military interest in Antarctica has always been real. Strategic considerations, air routes, communications, and the possibility of untapped resources ensured that no superpower could ignore the continent entirely. Secrecy was often a matter of national security, not hidden groups of people. But secrecy is fertile soil, and in that soil extraordinary narratives take root. Antarctica therefore occupies a unique position in the human imagination. It is both the most peaceful continent dedicated to science and the most suspicious hidden in military history and Cold War politics. It is both a place of data and a place of rumor where every radar strange thing becomes a buried ruin. Every sudden withdrawal an encounter with the unknown. Whether or not Antarctica hides a lost group of people, it certainly hides something equally powerful. The truth of how little we know and how much we fear not knowing. As the 21st century unfolded, Antarctica began to yield its secrets. Not through legend or rumor, but through the steady advance of science. Satellites, radar systems, and deep drilling technologies have pulled back the veil of ice, revealing landscapes and ecosystems unseen for millions of years. Yet, paradoxically, each revelation has also deepened the mystery. For those who dream, have lost groups of people beneath the ice. The discoveries of recent decades offer tantalizing clues that blur the line between established science and guessing wonder. One of the most significant breakthroughs came from ice-penetrating radar. These surveys revealed entire mountain ranges buried beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet, including the Gamburtsev Mountains as large and rugged as the European Alps. Their very existence is puzzling. Land models suggest such mountains should have worn away long ago. Yet here they are, kept in pristine form beneath miles of ice. The thought that such huge features could remain hidden until the mid-20th century underscores just how much of Antarctica remains unknown. To some, the matching shapes and isolation of these ranges invite guessing. Could valleys between them hide ruins kept since a time when the land was green? Even more astonishing are the under-ice lakes. Lake Vostok, one of the largest, has been sealed beneath nearly 4 kilometers of ice for perhaps 15 million years. Its waters are liquid only because heat from inside the Earth rises from below, creating a hidden ecosystem untouched by the surface world. When Russian scientists drilled into the lake, they found unusual tiny DNA, sparking debates about contamination versus genuine discovery. If life can survive in such isolation, thinkers ask, could traces of past human presence also remain kept in other under-ice lakes? Historians are still arguing whether these findings are purely natural events or hints of something more. In 2017, another startling revelation came up. Scientists uncovered evidence of an ancient rainforest beneath the ice of West Antarctica. Settled material cores revealed fossilized pollen and root structures, proving that 90 million years ago, Antarctica supported lush vegetation comparable to mild forests today. Though long predating humans, this finding confirms that Antarctica has repeatedly cycled between fertile landscapes and icy tombs. For guessing historians, it provides the necessary backdrop. If warm periods occurred even in relatively recent land time, then a window for human or proto-human living is not unthinkable. New satellite imagery has also revealed geometric strange things. In 2018, images spread of what appeared to be a massive rectangular structure sticking from the ice, some 500 m long. Scientists explained it as an exposed rock formation shaped by ice flow, but the resemblance to an artificial structure was strange. Other strange things, including perfectly circular domes and sharply defined ridges, have been similarly understood. The debate remains unresolved. Natural features distorted by ice or the remnants of something built in deep ancient times. Beyond land study, Antarctica's biological discoveries have been equally thought-provoking. In the McMurdo Dry Valleys, researchers found tiny mats thriving in liquid brine beneath frozen lakes, ecosystems that had endured in isolation for tens of thousands of years. Elsewhere, scientists discovered nematodes and tardigrades capable of surviving extreme cold and drying out, creatures that seemed almost alien in their strength. If life can continue under such conditions, could it also keep traces of human activity sealed away in ice for thousands of years? The parallel between tiny survival and hypothetical human ruins is irresistible to those who guess about lost groups of people. A strange off-topic discovery emphasizes the unexpected nature of Antarctic research. In 2016, NASA scientists testing equipment in Antarctica's ice reported detecting mysterious space rays coming from beneath the continent rather than from space above. Though later explained as strange things in detection, the story quickly spread as evidence of hidden structures or alien technology beneath the ice. In reality, it was a reminder that Antarctica's environment distorts even our instruments, creating puzzles where none may exist. Yet, each puzzle fuels the sense that something extraordinary might truly be hidden there. Climate change has also transformed the scientific picture. As glaciers retreat and ice shelves collapse, new landscapes are revealed. In 2017, a massive rift opened in the Larsen Sea ice shelf, carving an iceberg the size of Delaware. Beneath such shifting ice, scientists discovered previously hidden seafloor ecosystems thriving in darkness for thousands of years. Each exposure raises the possibility that one day ice retreat may uncover not just ecosystems, but something far more controversial: evidence of human or pre-human presence. For now, the changes are related to ecosystems, but they underscore the continent's fragility and its potential to reveal surprises. Historians are still arguing how far to stretch these scientific revelations. For mainstream researchers, the discoveries confirm Antarctica's role as a dynamic continent with a complex past, but not as the site of lost groups of people. For alternative thinkers, every new forest, lake, or strange thing adds weight to the idea. The line between science and guessing remains thin. What cannot be dug remains unknown, and what remains unknown becomes fertile ground for imagination. The great contradiction of Antarctica's new revelations is that they both explain and hide. They confirm that the continent was once green and livable, that life can continue in its hidden lakes, and that landscapes of staggering scale remain unseen beneath its ice. Yet, they also remind us of the limits of knowledge. For every discovery, there are hundreds of unanswered questions. Did humans ever step onto those fertile valleys? Did they leave traces now buried beyond reach? Or is Antarctica's mystery not one of groups of people but of nature alone, writing its story in ice? Whatever the truth, the continent continues to whisper possibilities. Each new scan, each core, each strange thing is a page torn from a frozen archive hinting that the story of Antarctica and perhaps the story of humanity is far from complete. Every strange thing, every myth, every map that appears to show an ice-free Antarctic coast inevitably reaches the desks of historians and scientists who study old things. Here the debate becomes sharp. On one side stand mainstream scholars, cautious, insistent that no verifiable evidence places humans in Antarctica before modern times. On the other side are alternative researchers convinced that enough smoke exists to suggest a hidden fire, that the first group of people may indeed lie under the ice, its remains beyond the reach of regular digging. Between them stretches a gulf of understanding where quietness and possibility feed endless argument. Mainstream history anchors itself in evidence. No stone tools, no pottery, No skeletal remains have ever been recovered from Antarctica. Without these, academic agreement maintains that no ancient human presence existed there. Antarctica's harsh climate and its separation by the stormy Southern Ocean are mentioned as barriers too hard for early sailing peoples. Scientific time orders firmly locate the cradles of groups of people in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China, with South America providing independent development later. Within this framework, Antarctica is dismissed as a land curiosity rather than a historical stage. Yet, strange things trouble this certainty. The Piri Reis and Orontius Phineas maps, the supposed pyramid-shaped mountains, the unexplained radar grids all resist neat explanation. For alternative historians, these are not errors but clues. They argue that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when an entire continent is locked beneath 3 miles of ice. They point out that groups of people like Troy, long dismissed as myths, were eventually dug up. If such rediscoveries were possible in the Mediterranean, why not in the far south? Historians are still arguing whether doubt itself becomes a form of blindness, preventing inquiry into possibilities that lie beyond familiar boundaries. Myth provides another arena of dispute. Mainstream scholars read flood legends, tales of gods from the sea, and stories of lost lands as symbolic narratives shaped by cultural memory and imagination. Alternative researchers see them as coded history, spoken traditions keeping genuine memories of disaster-like climate shifts and migrations from lands now lost. The myth of Atlantis, for example, is understood by some as poetic allegory, by others as veiled testimony of a real group of people destroyed in the Ice Age. Whether myth is metaphor or memory remains one of the most argued questions in historical debate. Science too fuels disagreement. Ice cores revealing sudden climate shifts like the Younger Dryas demonstrate that Earth can change violently and quickly. Mainstream climate scientists view these as natural processes, volcano eruptions, ocean flow changes, space rock impacts without any necessary connection to human societies. Alternative thinkers see them as the very events that could have buried groups of people like the one guessed in Antarctica. To them, the scientific data and the myths align, pointing to disaster on a scale sufficient to erase entire cultures. Scientific surprises elsewhere support the alternative position. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey with huge buildings dating back 11,000 years overturned assumptions about when organized societies first appeared. Before its digging, few believed hunter-gatherers could build on such a scale. Its existence proves that timelines can shift dramatically when evidence comes up. To those who see Antarctica as the next frontier, Göbekli Tepe is an example, a reminder that human history is deeper and stranger than textbooks often suggest. A strange off-topic debate shows how split such discussions can become. In the 1960s, claims of a lost continent called Mu in the Pacific gained attention through popular books, though scientists who study old things dismiss them for lack of evidence. The excitement surrounding Mu mirrors the controversy over Antarctica. Both reveal the human impulse to fill gaps in history with stories of great vanished worlds. The question remains whether these impulses reflect fantasy or hidden memory. For mainstream scholars, the burden of proof rests firmly on those making extraordinary claims. Without artifacts, they argue, guessing is not history, but myth-making. For alternative thinkers, the sheer being hard to access of Antarctica makes such demands unreasonable. Digging is forbidden, and nature itself guards the evidence. They argue instead for a broader definition of history, one that acknowledges the potential of hidden or erased chapters. This clash of views is not merely academic. It touches on thinking. What is history? Is it only what is confirmed by physical artifacts? Or does it also include what is remembered in story, encoded in maps, or hinted at in strange things? To insist on certainty may keep rigor but risk blindness. To embrace guessing may invite imagination but risk delusion. The debate over Antarctica makes clear this tension, turning a frozen continent into a mirror of how humanity seeks truth. Historians are still arguing where to draw the line between possibility and fantasy. Some call for patience, trusting that technological advances, better radar, deeper drilling, genetic analysis may one day provide clarity. Others warn that such patience may allow myths to grow, misleading generations into chasing illusions. And yet the mystery continues, nourished by quietness, by strange things, and by the enduring human hunger for stories of beginnings. Thus, Antarctica has become not just a geographical frontier, but a thinking battlefield. It divides those who see only ice from those who imagine groups of people beneath it. Perhaps both are correct in their own way. Antarctica is indeed ice, yet also a vessel for imagination, holding not only glaciers, but the possibility of forgotten history. Until the ice yields, the debate will continue, echoing across lecture halls, research stations, and the human mind itself. What if beneath Antarctica's frozen crown lie the remains of the first group of people on Earth? It is a question that hovers at the edge of being believable, neither fully dismissed nor believably proven. Yet to imagine it is to rewrite the story of humanity, shifting our sense of origin and destiny alike. If the continent once flourished as a cradle of culture, then the narrative of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley as firsts becomes only a continuation of something older, deeper, and more easily forgotten. Such a discovery would upend the foundations of the study of old things. Groups of people are judged by evidence, tools, bones, writings, ruins. To find those beneath Antarctic ice would force scholars to reconsider everything from migration patterns to technological timelines. If an Antarctic society predated known groups of people, it would mean that writing, star study, farming, or buildings might have arisen far earlier than believed. Human skill, far from being a recent bloom, would be revealed as an ancient forest cut down and buried by disaster. It would also reshape the role of myth. Atlantis, Zep Tepi, Viracocha, Lemuria, so long dismissed as allegory, might come up as cultural memories of real events. Survivors of Antarctica's collapse could have carried fragments of memory into other lands, reinterpreted as stories of gods and lost ages. The myths of sudden floods, freezes, and divine teachers would take on new meaning, not as fantasy, but as history encoded in metaphor. Historians are still arguing whether myth contains such kernels of truth, but an Antarctic discovery would tilt the debate decisively. The meanings would extend beyond history into thinking. Humanity's sense of uniqueness rests partly on the belief that we are the first and only worldwide group of people. To discover predecessors beneath the ice would humble that assumption. It would remind us that groups of people are fragile, that they rise and fall with climates, and that our own achievements may one day vanish as completely as theirs. In that sense, Antarctica would be less a cradle than a warning, a frozen monument to the non-permanence of greatness. Such a revelation would also provoke uncomfortable questions about secrecy. If governments or scientists already suspect ruins beneath the ice, is that knowledge being hidden? The Antarctic Treaty's limits on digging, while officially environmental, may appear to some as deliberate. Hiding. Would humanity be prepared for the psychological shock of such a discovery? Or would it be deemed safer to leave the truth buried? Another casualty of ice and time? A peculiar off-topic reflection emphasizes this. When Heinrich Schliemann uncovered the ruins of Troy in the 19th century, many scholars had long dismissed the city as myth. Its rediscovery did not only prove the story true, it forced historians to admit how fragile their certainties were. If Antarctica were to yield a similar revelation, the shock would be magnified 100-fold. It would be Troy, Atlantis, and the flood all at once. A rewriting of everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Whether such ruins exist or not, the very possibility changes our view. Antarctica is no longer just a continent of ice. It becomes a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that history may have roots deeper than we realize. To imagine an Antarctic group of people is to admit that the map of human origins is incomplete, that the quietness of ice may hide not emptiness but memory. If the first group of people lies beneath Antarctica, then humanity is not at the beginning of its story, but in the middle of it. Others have risen, achieved, and fallen before us. Their ruins, if they exist, are not only relics of the past, but mirrors of our own future. Ice is merciless, but it is also patient, keeping what it buries. One day, perhaps through melting or through new technologies, the ice may give up its secrets. And when it does, we may find ourselves staring at the face of a group of people both alien and familiar. Our forgotten reflection waiting across the gulf of ages. And so the journey ends in quietness. Antarctica's quietness, vast and unbroken, stretching across an entire continent. The questions remain, suspended like frost in the air. Was it once green, alive, and inhabited? Did the first cities rise not in Mesopotamia, but in valleys now buried 3 miles deep? Or is the story of Antarctica not of groups of people lost, but of human imagination, forever projecting its hopes and fears onto the last blank place on the map? Science has given us fragments, pollen trapped in ice, microbes thriving in hidden lakes, mountain ranges and rivers carved beneath glaciers. Myths have given us whispers of gods from the sea, of lands erased by floods and fire, of knowledge arriving from beyond. Maps have given us puzzles, strange things that resist easy explanation. Between these fragments lies an emptiness, one that may never be filled, but which continues to draw us back to the southernmost frontier. Perhaps Antarctica's greatest secret is not ruins or pyramids, but the reminder of how much we do not know. Each strange thing is a mirror of our own desire for beginnings. Each myth a reflection of our need to believe that something came before us. The ice holds its quietness indifferent to our stories, keeping whatever truth it contains until the world is ready, or until the glaciers themselves retreat. And now, as the pace of the world slows and night deepens, let the mind rest on that frozen horizon. Imagine the endless white, the ancient mountains hidden below, the forest turned to stone, and perhaps beneath them all, the faint outline of forgotten walls. Whether they exist or not, the possibility is enough to dream by. The ice keeps its secrets. Our task is only to wonder. Good night.